historic conflicts.
In the early 13th century, a storm was gathering on the vast steppes of Asia, a storm that would soon sweep across continents and change the course of history. Under the iron will and vision of Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire was born, transforming disparate nomadic tribes into an unstoppable force. The Mongols, once contained by the borders of their homeland, now looked outward with ambition and hunger, their banners fluttering in the relentless steppe wind. Genghis Khan, whose very name would come to inspire both awe and terror, forged his people into a war machine unlike any the world had ever seen. With unmatched speed, mobility, and discipline, his armies struck swiftly, overwhelming cities and kingdoms with a ferocity that left survivors trembling. Cities fell, empires crumbled, and the world watched as the Mongol horde surged westward, leaving a trail of devastation and legend in its wake. By the early 1220s, the Mongol gaze turned toward the mysterious lands beyond their familiar horizons, toward the great rivers and forests of Eastern Europe. It was here, on the borderlands of the known world, that the next chapter of Mongol conquest would be written. At the heart of this story are two brilliant commanders, Subutai, the master strategist, and Jebe, the relentless cavalry leader. Together, they led a reconnaissance mission that would become one of the most dramatic encounters of the Mongol campaigns, the Battle of Kalka River. The seeds of conflict were sown not with swords, but with alliances and betrayals. The Cumans, a nomadic people who roamed the southern steppes, found themselves relentlessly pursued by the Mongol vanguard. Desperate, the Cumans turned to their neighbors, the princes of the fragmented Rus' principalities, for aid. The Rus, bound by uneasy truces and mutual suspicion, suddenly faced a common enemy, one that threatened not just their allies, but the very existence of their way of life. As spring warmed the land in 1223, a coalition formed. Rus' princes and Kuman Khans, united under a common banner. Messengers galloped between cities, summoning warriors from Kiev, Chernigov, and Galich. The call to arms echoed through forests and across rivers, drawing thousands to their cause. They were determined to halt the Mongol advance, to prove that unity could withstand even the greatest of storms. But the Mongols were masters of deception and mobility. Subutai and Jebe, outnumbered and deep in hostile territory, crafted a plan that played to every Mongol strength. They feigned weakness, retreating before the coalition, luring their enemies ever deeper into the open steppe, their domain, their battlefield. The coalition, emboldened by Mongol withdrawals, pursued their elusive foe. Days turned into weeks as the chase dragged on, the allied host growing weary, their resolve tested by the endless expanse. The Mongols, ever watchful, struck suddenly, launching devastating raids on stragglers and scouts. Each attack sowed confusion, fear, and distrust among the Rus and Cumans. Then, on the banks of the Kalka River, the trap was sprung. The Mongols, having chosen their ground with care, turned at last to face their pursuers. The coalition, exhausted and overstretched, found themselves arrayed across a broad front, their forces divided by distance and uncertainty. Subutai and Jebe, reading the enemy's weaknesses with uncanny precision, unleashed a storm of arrows from their mounted archers. The sky darkened as volleys rained down, cutting through armor and flesh alike. The battlefield erupted in chaos. Mongol cavalry swept along the flanks, encircling the coalition's vanguard. The Rus, unfamiliar with the fluid tactics of their adversaries, tried desperately to form defensive lines. But the Mongols pressed the attack, never giving them a moment's respite. The Cumans, who had urged the coalition into battle, broke first, fleeing the field and leaving their allies exposed. The center collapsed under the relentless Mongol assault. Archers picked off commanders, and shock troops drove wedges into the faltering lines. Panic spread as men fell by the hundreds, their cries drowned by the thunder of hooves and the shriek of arrows. The river behind offered no escape, only drowning or slaughter. Some Rus' princes, realizing the futility of resistance, attempted to negotiate their surrender. The Mongols, masters of psychological warfare, promised mercy only to betray their captives in cold blood. The leaders were executed, their bones left to bleach on the steppe as a jiwao. Thank you for respecting history. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any battles.